Janice, discussion, interaction, approval of Samuel Hummel and James Petit as full-time law enforcement deputies. This item was an item we took up at the regular meeting of last week, and at that point I moved to hire these two deputies. My feeling was that it was a matter of procedure. The money had already been budgeted, and that the Civil Service Board had selected these two, and that our role was primarily one of procedure to approve the hires. However, that motion did not get seconded that I made. So we're here today to discuss this item again.
I move that we go into an executive session to discuss a personnel matter.
So you move to block this from the public view. I took great exception with Mr. Fleming's explanation when I came to the meeting the other night. With I was interested in the drilling and what effects it's going to have. I grew up in the 40s and the 50s, and I know what rampant, uncontrolled industrial, based on strip mining and underground waste from small punch mines. Anybody that had a lease at that time or had any control and enough money to buy a couple of shovels or a dozer or whatever, or a lot of heavy equipment, could do what they wanted. And that area right now it's still pretty devoid of any tourism or recreational value other than the New River Valley, Grandview State Park, a few fringe items that's always been there and protected. But the river wasn't at that time, and it was a pretty nasty place. All the streams were bad. So that's the reason there's this meeting. But then when the deputy thing came up, I was not particularly familiar with that, but the Christopher Cole thing, who I'd seen a document where he agreed not to ever serve in law enforcement in Kentucky, and then Mr. Fleming said we defer that to a Civil Service Commission, which is out of public view. And then it looked to me like the commissioners, who are an oversight committee elected by the people, were burying their heads in the sand. And that disturbed me a lot. It gets back my childhood, and I've heard this all my life. Batista was bad, but now we have Castro, and I think it should be public, and I think the commissioner should listen to the public and be responsible to the public, as their elected position should infer that that's their duty.
And I would object to that based on the fact if he hasn't been hired, it couldn't be a personnel problem in the sense of discipline or anything like that. So there's no reason we shouldn't be sitting in on the hiring of these deputies, especially when we're losing deputies. And we know we've got some criminals, have been on the staff, on the deputy thing before. And did you go into executive session last time when you discussed this motion?
Of the last meeting, of which
no,
I made a motion to approve the hire, and the motion was not seconded.
So you would have.
On to the next issue.
You didn't go into executive session on the. In other words, this person would have been hired.
The normal thing we've done with deputies has been really procedural. And normally, anytime the sheriff comes to us with the recommendations of the Civil Service Board, we have approved the hire. This time was different in my mind in that we didn't approve the hire. The county commission has the responsibility and the right to approve or not approve hires for any office. However, my feeling is that the selection of the deputies is an activity carried out by the Civil Service Board and not primarily the responsibility of the commission. But technically, Commissioners Walker and Saffer exercised their right to not approve the hire at that time.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was surprised, but it's within the proper decision-making authority of the county commission.
So has this person gone through the academy?
Can we get going with the motion that I made?
Well, I'm objecting to the.
I understand, Mr. Alderman, but I have a motion here in front of the commission.
All right, Jamie, you heard it. Why don't I object?
We do have a motion. I think what I'll do at this time is ask for a second, see if there's any further discussion. Is there a second to the motion to go into executive session on the grounds of personnel matter?
I'm going to encourage us to do this because we have to talk frankly among ourselves and with the sheriff about certain personnel issues and matters, and we can't talk freely unless we have an executive session to which we are legally entitled. And if we take any action, we have to take it outside of an executive session, and that action can be then examined by the public and the press and have discussion about it. But the actual discussion and thought of the matter, I feel absolutely has to be in an executive session.
Yes.
My name is John Tier. I'm legal counsel for the West Virginia Sheriff's Association. I've been asked to come by Sheriff Janice. And Mr. Safford,
Yes.
you're absolutely correct. Not only does West Virginia Code prefer personnel matters in executive session, it requires discussions of personnel matters to be in executive session unless the subject, the person, requests an open meeting. So that I would suggest to you, and you may check with your counsel, that a wide open discussion of personnel matters without the consent of the persons that are topic of discussion violates the law.
Thank you.
I agree that we are within our legal right to do that. I guess what I'm struggling with is that I'm not aware of why we're going to be talking about this matter in executive session. We've always handled these things procedurally and in public. However, I guess since there are matters to be discussed that I'm not aware of, that should be done in executive session since it is on a personnel matter. So I reluctantly second the motion. For the record, I want it known that I felt we should have approved these hires at our last meeting. But I'll second the motion.
Well, see, one of them's already been hired, you knew that, right?
Can we
I've
call
got the
for a
oath of
vote?
office.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor of the executive session to discuss the personnel matter, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
2 to 1. So we're going into executive session at this time. And,